A tourist in a Spider-Man costume mocked a royal guardsman, turning centuries of tradition into a TikTok joke. But when the guard broke his silence, the crowd froze. What happened next was a stunning lesson in respect and karma. It was one of those postcard-perfect mornings outside Buckingham Palace. Blue skies, a gentle breeze, and a sea of tourists buzzing with excitement. Cameras clicked in rapid succession, children tugged at their parents, and the iconic red-clad royal guards stood as unyielding symbols of tradition. Among them, Harry Wells, a 30-year-old guardsman, epitomized dignity. His crimson uniform was impeccable, his bearskin hat perched with precision, and his gaze locked forward with an unwavering discipline. But of course, where there's tradition, there's someone determined to stomp all over it. Enter Jason. In his early 40s, slightly drunk, and dressed as Spider-Man, Jason was the embodiment of a certain breed of tourist. The one who thinks a plane ticket and a few pounds spent give him free rein to behave like a fool. "Hey, look at me!" Jason's voice boomed, cutting through the hum of the crowd like a chainsaw in a library. His red and blue costume clung awkwardly to his frame as he waved his arms dramatically, eliciting laughter from his equally obnoxious friends. "This is gonna go viral! TikTok gold, baby!" Let's pause for a moment. Who does this? Seriously, if you're thinking, "What an idiot," you're not alone. Everyone in the crowd was thinking it too, except Jason and his enablers. Despite the thick white line marking the do not cross zone, Jason strutted over it with exaggerated confidence. His friends, phones poised to record, egged him on. "Go on, mate! Climb him! It'll be epic!" Now Harry had seen plenty of this nonsense before. As a royal guardsman, he was no stranger to idiotic stunts. But even for him, this was testing limits. His jaw tightened ever so slightly, a microscopic tell that betrayed his annoyance. Jason, oblivious to the crowd's shifting tone, marched right up to Harry. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Harry, a paragon of tradition, and Jason, the living embodiment of modern disrespect. Some bystanders gasped, others muttered disapproval, and a few reached for their phones to capture the impending disaster. What was Jason thinking? Probably something like, "He's just a statue in a funny hat. It's all part of the show." But for Harry, this wasn't a show. This was duty, discipline, and centuries of honor wrapped in a uniform. Still, he didn't move. For now, he let Jason bask in his misguided sense of superiority. The air grew tense. You could almost feel the collective thought of the crowd. This is not going to end well. And they weren't wrong. Jason stood inches away from Harry, his confidence swelling like a balloon ready to burst. He flailed his arms in front of the stoic guardsman, his fingers almost brushing Harry's face. "Look, it's just a show!" Jason shouted, his words drenched in mockery and cheap bravado. Let's pause. A show? Really? Because the last time anyone checked, the Royal Guard wasn't a cast of characters at Disneyland. But Jason, drunk on both alcohol and his own sense of entitlement, saw otherwise. He wasn't here to respect tradition. He was here to star in his own little TikTok tragedy. The crowd's reaction was divided. Some giggled nervously, enjoying the spectacle despite themselves. Others muttered disapprovingly, shaking their heads at Jason's audacity. A few whispered the thoughts we're all having. This is going to end badly. Then Jason did it. He threw his arms around Harry's rigid shoulders and hoisted himself up like a child scaling a jungle gym. The pose he struck for the camera, a ridiculous half-squat mid-climb, wasn't just humiliating for himself. It was an insult to everything Harry stood for. Harry remained still, his discipline as unyielding as the Queen's Guard tradition itself. But something had shifted. The subtle tightening of his jaw, the tension in his hands. It was clear to anyone paying attention that the guardsman's patience was wearing thin. Nearby, Harry's horse stamped the ground and let out a sharp whinny, as if to echo the unease. And then, karma arrived. Jason's grip slipped, and down he went, landing with a graceless thud on the cobblestones. His phone followed, splashing into a puddle like the final punctuation to his humiliation. The crowd gasped, a ripple of shock passing through them, before scattered laughter broke the silence. "Well, that wasn't part of the plan," Jason blurted out, his face flushing crimson. He tried to laugh it off, but the energy in the crowd had shifted. Harry finally moved, taking one deliberate step forward. His voice, when it came, was like a thunderclap. "Step back behind the line." 3 words. That's all it took to turn the laughter into an awkward, reverent hush. Jason scrambled to his feet, soaking wet and out of excuses. The crowd's phones, once aimed at the guardsman, now turned to the tourist, forever capturing his well-deserved downfall. As the dust from Jason's humiliating tumble began to settle, a new figure emerged from the crowd. A frail, elderly woman in a wheelchair, her face lit with anticipation as she tried to inch closer for a cherished photo. But her path was blocked. And guess who was in the way? Jason, still puffing his chest and gesturing wildly to his friends, reliving his heroic moment. "Did you see how I handled that fall? Totally intentional," he boasted, oblivious to the woman's polite attempts to navigate around him. Let's pause. Because seriously, of all the times to keep boasting, this was not it. Even the crowd was beginning to shift from amusement to irritation, their gazes darting between the struggling woman and the oblivious Spider-Man wannabe. And then, something remarkable happened. Harry, the unshakable guardsman who had endured Jason's antics in stoic silence, broke protocol. Yes, broke protocol. He stepped forward, his boots clicking against the cobblestones, and with a composed yet commanding presence, he cleared the path for the woman. His gloved hand rested gently on the wheelchair's handle, guiding her to the perfect spot for her photo. "Thank you, young man," she said, her voice warm with gratitude. Harry, ever dignified, offered a brief nod before returning to his post. The entire interaction took mere seconds, but the effect was immediate. The crowd, who moments ago had been recording Jason's antics, now erupted in applause for Harry's quiet act of humanity. Meanwhile, Jason stood awkwardly to the side, his bravado deflated like a cheap balloon. He rubbed the back of his neck, his face a shade redder than his Spider-Man costume. Yeah, I was just joking, you know," he mumbled, hoping for some shred of sympathy. But the crowd wasn't having it. Someone muttered, "What a clown." Another chimed in, "About time he got out of the way." To make matters worse, or better depending on your perspective, Jason's phone, now thoroughly waterlogged, refused to turn on. As he frantically pressed buttons, the crowd chuckled and jeered, their allegiance firmly with the guardsman. In that moment, Harry didn't need words. His actions had said enough, and the crowd's reaction proved it. Dignity always wins. By the next day, videos of Jason's antics flooded social media. The captions ranged from sarcastic to outright mocking. "When Spider-Man loses his webs," and Tradition 1, Tourist 0. Back at his post, Harry resumed his duty as usual. This time, the crowd was noticeably more respectful. Among them was a young boy dressed as Superman. The boy gazed up at Harry with wide-eyed admiration. Breaking his stoic stance once more, Harry leaned slightly toward the boy and whispered, "You look like a real hero." The crowd burst into applause, this time out of genuine appreciation. Harry straightened his hat and returned to his position, a symbol of unwavering tradition. For him, it was just another day of service. For everyone else, it was a powerful reminder of the importance of respect and honor.